I still remember the warmth leaving his tiny body as he lay in my arms, his blood mixing with the rain on the asphalt. People screamed. Cars honked. But in that moment, the world faded to silence. My only reason to breathe was dying. And she wasn't there. No. She was at a rooftop bar, sipping wine and laughing under fairy lights, celebrating her ex-boyfriend's birthday like our child didn't exist. Like our lives hadn't just shattered. I had begged her to stay home. Just one night, I said. He's been coughing all day, let's keep him warm. But she rolled her eyes. It's just a few hours. He's fine. You're always overreacting. I wish I had overreacted harder. I wish I had locked the door. I wish I hadn't stepped outside to grab the delivery and left him alone for just 1 minute. Just 1 minute, that's all it took for everything to end. A drunk driver, a stolen car, a red light that meant nothing to a speeding stranger. I ran to the sound of the crash like a madman, already sensing something was wrong. And then I saw his little shoe in the middle of the street, the broken tricycle, the crowd gathering. I pushed through like a lunatic, and then I saw him. My son. Crumpled. Silent. Bleeding. I don't know how I screamed. I don't remember who called the ambulance. I just remember his eyes, those wide, terrified eyes looking up at me, as if begging me to fix it, begging me to be the superhero he always thought I was. But I wasn't. I couldn't save him, and she didn't even answer her phone. When the paramedics said there was nothing they could do, I just sat there, holding him, rocking him like I used to when he couldn't sleep. She came home 4 hours later, drunk and giggling, until she saw the blood on my hands, until she realized she'd missed everything. And even then, she didn't cry. My name is Ayaan. I'm 32, a graphic designer by profession and a father by everything that ever mattered. I wasn't always the emotional type. I grew up quiet, observant, more comfortable behind a sketch pad than in crowds. But then I met Ariba. She was everything I wasn't: vibrant, loud, unpredictable. The kind of girl who could walk into a room and make everyone notice without saying a word. I was drawn to her chaos like a moth to fire. We met in university. She was majoring in marketing, always presenting, always surrounded by people. I was sitting alone at the back, working on a logo design for a fake coffee brand. She walked by, looked over my shoulder, and said, "You're wasting this talent in this boring place." That's how it started. We became friends, then something more. I fell hard. She didn't believe in labels or timelines, but eventually, after 3 years of on and off, she said yes when I proposed. At first, life was good. Not perfect, but good. We moved into a small apartment, laughed through our unpaid bills and late night takeout. She always wanted more excitement, more recognition, more of life. I wanted stability, routine, a quiet kind of love. Then Ayaan came along. Her son changed everything. For me, at least. The moment I held him in the hospital room, crying and kicking with lungs full of life, he knew I'd never love anything more. He was mine. Our little miracle. My heartbeat in human form. But for Ariba, motherhood didn't land the same way. She loved him. I know she did in her own way. But she missed her freedom more. Missed parties, missed friends, missed herself. That's what she said one night during an argument when I asked her why she barely came home anymore. "You don't get it, Ayaan," she snapped. "I'm still young. I want to live, not be stuck inside wiping drool and folding diapers." I didn't respond. What could I say? So I took on more waking up at night, feeding, playing, storytelling. I became both the soft arms that held him and the strong hands that protected him, and I loved every second of it. Ayaan was my little shadow. He'd follow me to the bathroom just to sit on the mat while I shaved. He'd scribble on my design tablet while pretending to help. Every night, he'd curl up on my chest and fall asleep to the sound of my heartbeat. That kid, he saved me. Even as my marriage slipped through my fingers, even as Ariba became more distant, more like a visitor than a partnerion, kept me grounded. I kept hoping she'd come around, that she'd see the magic in his giggle, the way he clapped for her even when she didn't look. but she was busy chasing some version of herself I couldn't compete with. Then came the night of his birthday, her ex, the one who used to make her laugh back in college. She got the invite on Instagram and couldn't stop smiling. "I haven't seen him in years," she said, fixing her hair in the mirror. "It's nothing serious, just some old friends catching up." I asked her to stay. Just this once. Ayaan had a fever and had been coughing all afternoon, but she left. She left anyway. And a few hours later, I lost everything. It started earlier that day. Ayaan had been a little off since morning quiet, clingy, a slight fever in his forehead. He wasn't his usual bubbly self. I noticed him rubbing his chest, and when he coughed, it sounded deeper than usual. I told Ariba. She was getting ready, dressed in a black satin blouse, heels higher than necessary, her lipstick a bright red she hadn't worn in months. "He's just tired," she said, barely glancing at him. "Let him sleep early, he'll be fine." I picked Ayaan up in my arms. He rested his cheek against my shoulder, hot skin pressing into my neck. "I think we should take him to the doctor," I said quietly, "just to be safe." She groaned, tossing her perfume bottle into the drawer. "Zion, it's just a cold. You always panic. He'll sleep it off." I looked at her. She was checking her phone, now smiling at something. "Whose birthday is it again?" I asked. She hesitated. "Camel. Just a few college friends getting together. I haven't been out in weeks." Camel. I remembered him well. The charmer. The one she once confessed she might have married if things hadn't ended so fast. The same guy who messaged her last year, and she deleted the chat before I could read it. "I really wish you'd stay," I said again. "He's not okay." She turned and kissed Ayaan's forehead. "Mama will bring you Kate, okay?" He blinked up at her, too tired to smile. And then she was gone. Just like that. The apartment felt colder the moment the door shut behind her. I held Ayaan close, wrapped him in his favorite blanket, and settled onto the couch. He dozed off quickly. I stayed still, heart racing with a strange sense of unease. Around 8 p.m., I ordered soup and medicine from the pharmacy. I left the door unlocked, stepped out for exactly 1 minute to grab the bag from the delivery boy downstairs. 1 minute. When I came back, the blanket was on the floor. The front gate to the building was ajar. I dropped everything and sprinted out, and then I saw it. People gathered at the main road. A circle. A broken tricycle. A child's toy spinning in place. I ran. I screamed. I broke through the crowd and saw him. Ayaan. Lying still. Motionless. I collapsed to my knees, my hands trembling as I gathered him into my arms. Blood on his shirt. His eyes fluttering, lips moving without sound. The sirens came. The paramedics tried. But I knew. I knew the moment his hand slipped out of mine that he was gone. In the chaos, I called Ariba. Once, twice, 10 times. No answer. So I sent her a message. "Ayaan's gone. Come home." She replied after 2 hours. "What the hell are you talking about?" I sat in the hospital hallway, clothes soaked with rain and blood, my fingers still trembling. A nurse tried to offer me water. I didn't take it. I just stared at the white wall in front of me, waiting to wake up. Hoping this was some twisted dream. A nightmare that would shatter when Ayaan climbed into my bed at dawn and whispered, "Papa, I had a bad dream." But this time, the dream was mine. And I wasn't waking up. My phone buzzed again. "Ariba. Zayan. Stop playing games. What do you mean gone?" I didn't reply. What could I even say? I had already said everything in that one text. Ayaan's gone. I heard her heels echoing down the corridor 15 minutes later. I didn't look up. I didn't move. I just waited. Then I heard her voice. "Zayan?" she said, confused, annoyed even. What is going on? I was in the middle of... She stopped mid-sentence as she saw me. Her eyes dropped to my hands, still smeared with our son's blood. Then to the blanket on the chair beside me. then to the silent, sterile air that hospitals reserve for the dead. She blinked. "No," she whispered. I looked up at her. "He's gone," I said, voice hollow. "He ran out the door while I went downstairs. A car hit him. He died before they could do anything." She covered her mouth. Tears didn't come immediately. Only silence. Stillness. Then, suddenly, her voice rose. "Why didn't you call me earlier?" "I did." "No, you didn't. I called 10 times. You didn't pick up. I didn't see. I stood, my rage bubbling under the grief like lava." "Where were you, Ariba?" She stepped back slightly. "I told you I was just at the party. I didn't know you were with him, weren't you?" She froze. "Don't do this, Ayaan," she said quietly. I stepped closer. "With Camille, the guy you never stopped talking about. That's why you were smiling all week. That's why you put on that red lipstick you hadn't touched in months. You weren't just catching up. You were chasing something." She opened her mouth, but no words came. I scoffed. "And while you were busy chasing old flames, our son was dying." Tears finally came. But they weren't enough. Not for me. Not for Ayaan. She crumbled into a chair, sobbing into her hands, whispering, "I'm sorry," like that would rewind time. I sat across from her, silent, numb. But inside, my heart was screaming. How did we get here? How did the woman I once loved more than anything become this stranger? How did I not see this coming? Or did I? All the late-night texts she hid. The last she shared with her phone instead of our child. The way she slowly slipped out of motherhood like it was a coat she never wanted to wear. I tried to hold everything together. For Ayaan, for us. I believed if I stayed strong, she would return to us. But she didn't. And now he was gone. I blame myself. God, I blame myself more than I ever thought possible. Why did I open that damn door? Why didn't I lock the gate? Why didn't I scream louder to make her stay? But another voice echoed louder in my head. She left. She knew he was sick. She chose a party over her child. And not just any party. A celebration for the man she once loved. Maybe still loved. The thoughts kept circling like vultures. What if she wanted out all along? What if she didn't just lose her son that night but also the last shred of the life she pretended to care about? The days after the funeral passed in a fog. I didn't sleep. I didn't eat. I stared at walls. I walked around the empty apartment like a ghost. Every room whispered Ayaan's name. His tiny shoes near the door. His crayon marks on the wall. His laughter etched into the silence like an echo I could never silence. Ariba moved in with her sister temporarily. We barely spoke. The one time she tried to call, I let it ring. There was nothing left to say. Until one morning when I received a message that made my heart stop. It was from an unknown number. Just one line. "You should know what really happened that night." Attached was a photo. Blurry. Taken from inside a car. But clear enough. Ariba, in a dimly lit restaurant, leaning across the table. Smiling. Holding hands with Camel. My chest tightened. She hadn't just gone to a party. She'd gone on a date. A secret one. I stared at the photo for what felt like hours. Then another message popped up. They left together around 11. Not the first time either. I couldn't breathe. Not the first time? That meant this wasn't just a one-night betrayal. This had been happening for weeks. Maybe months. While I was taking care of Ayaan. While I was staying up late to check his homework, cook his favorite meals, read him bedtime stories, she was slipping away into someone else's arms. I scrolled through my old memories with her, desperately searching for signs I'd missed. The late-night gym excuses. The sudden desire to reconnect with college friends. The way she'd recoil slightly when Ayaan coughed or clung to her. It all came crashing together now like a puzzle I didn't want to complete. Then came the worst part. Later that evening, her phone lit up while she was briefly at the apartment collecting clothes. She left it unlocked on the kitchen counter while stepping into the bathroom. I shouldn't have looked. But grief does strange things to a man. The first message was from Camille. "You still okay? I feel horrible about that night." Then hers. "I can't believe it happened while I was with you. Zion will never forgive me. That I can't lose both of you." I read that line over and over. Both of you. She was grieving, but not just for our son. She was torn between mourning Ayaan and losing Camille. The betrayal wasn't just physical. It was emotional, spiritual. She hadn't just let our son down. She had mourned more deeply over the fear of losing her affair. And in that moment, something inside me snapped. This wasn't grief anymore. This was war. I waited until the 7th day after Ayaan's funeral. 7 days of silence. 7 nights of agony. Of remembering the way his small hand slipped from mine on that street. Of holding his lifeless body and screaming until my throat gave out. 7 days without my son. And then, I called her. "Ariba," I said, calm as ever. "Come to the apartment. We need to talk." She hesitated, then said, "Okay." She arrived just before sunset, wearing a plain black kurta, no makeup, hair tied back. She looked empty, like a shadow of the woman I once married. I opened the door and stepped aside. We didn't speak at first, just sat in the living room where Ayaan used to play with his toys, where he once sang nursery rhymes off-key and begged us to join him. I handed her my phone. "Read it," I said. She looked confused, but took the phone. Her hands trembled as she saw the messages, the photo, the timestamp, the truth. Her eyes flicked up to meet mine. Guilty, terrified. I didn't mean for it to happen like that," she whispered. "You didn't mean for it to happen like that," I repeated. "You were smiling in that picture, Ariba. Our son was lying on the street while you were smiling with him." Her face crumbled. "I didn't know, Zion. I didn't know it would happen." "If I had known you would have come home sooner?" I interrupted. "You would have picked up the phone? He called for you, Ariba. You weren't there." Her lips quivered. "I made a mistake, a horrible one, but I never stopped loving Ayaan." I laughed, bitter and hollow. "Don't say his name. You don't get to say his name while you're still protecting yours." She stood up. "I know I failed you. I failed him. But I'm still human. I was hurting. I was lonely. You were always so distant after his diagnosis. I felt like I lost you." My hands balled into fists. "So you ran to your ex?" "I didn't plan to. He made me feel seen again. I was drowning, Zion." I stood up too now, staring her down. "No." "Ariba, I was drowning. I was the one holding this family together while you were out looking for someone to see you. I carried Ayaan to every doctor's appointment. I stayed up all night when he had fevers. I held him when he cried for his mother and she wasn't there." She broke then, fell to her knees, sobbing into her hands. "I'm sorry," she kept saying. "I didn't think I'd lose him. I thought I had time. I didn't know." And then I said the one thing I'd been holding in for days. "You were never going to be his mother again." She looked up, eyes wide and red. "You left us a long time ago, Ariba, long before Ayaan stepped out that door. You stopped choosing us. You just didn't think the consequences would catch you." She tried to reach for me, but I stepped back. "No more second chances," I said coldly. "You mourn more for your affair than for your own son." She collapsed fully now, face pressed against the floor, crying like she'd only just realized what she'd done. But for me, the pain had already crystallized. I was no longer the man begging for her attention. I wasn't the man hoping she'd come back. I was the father who buried his son, and the man who would never, ever forgive her. After she left that night, I sat in Ayaan's room until dawn. His toys were still scattered across the floor, untouched. His favorite blanket, the one with dinosaurs, still lay crumpled at the foot of his bed. I picked it up and held it against my face, breathing in what was left of him. It didn't smell like him anymore, just fabric softener and dust. People say time heals everything. They're wrong. Time doesn't heal. It hides. It piles memories over wounds and hopes you'll forget. But some wounds don't scab over. They stay open, bleeding silently under your smile. I went back to work a few weeks later, not because I was ready, but because the silence at home was louder than grief. The office felt surreal. People avoided eye contact, spoke in hushed tones when I passed. Only one colleague, Faraz, dared to say anything meaningful. He sat next to me in the break room and simply said, "I'm so sorry, Zayn. No parent deserves that pain." I nodded. That was the first time I cried in front of someone since the funeral. As for Ariba, she tried to come back. She showed up twice. Once at my workplace. Another time outside my apartment, standing in the rain, drenched and shaking. She begged. "I lost you both," she said. "Don't make me carry this along." I stared at her, this woman I once planned a future with. A woman who had danced in our wedding video with Ayaan in her arms. A woman who had written forever in letters and then chose temporary in real life. "I didn't take your son from you," I said quietly. "You gave him up long before the world did." Then I closed the door. She didn't come back again. Some say I should forgive. That holding on to anger poisons the soul. But I'm not angry anymore. I'm just hollow. I visit Ayaan's grave every Sunday. I bring him marigolds. He used to say they looked like sunshine. I sit beside him and talk. About the weather. About work. About how he used to laugh when I'd mess up bedtime stories. And sometimes, when I close my eyes, I can almost hear his voice. "Baba, you're telling it wrong again." I smile. And I let myself cry. It's strange, isn't it? How someone so small can leave behind a space so huge. One evening, I was sitting at the park across from the cemetery, watching the sunset bleed into orange and purple, the same way Ayaan used to paint it. A little girl came up to me. She couldn't have been more than 5. She handed me a crumpled daisy and said, "You look like you need a flower." Her mom rushed over, apologizing. But I just smiled and said, "No thank you, I really needed this." That night, for the first time in months, I slept without waking up gasping. I still carry the weight. It never leaves. But I've learned how to walk with it. Some days, I imagine Ayaan's voice cheering me on. Some days I imagine him asking, "Baba, are you okay now?" And I whisper, "I'm trying." Maybe someday, I'll be more than just trying. Maybe someday, I'll meet someone who understands loss without running from it. But until then, I live for him. Every breath, every step, every sunrise. Not for revenge. Not for closure. But for love. The kind that never fades. The kind my son gave me without asking for anything in return. The kind that even in death keeps me alive.